Hi, everybody. I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, America's #1 small business expert. And I'm so excited to welcome you to another episode of the Small Biz Chat podcast. We have an amazing show in store for you today. We're going to be talking about understanding how to harness the power of faith in your business. And if you're a business owner who's ready to get serious about building your sales process, I've got an amazing guest here who's going to talk about what we all can do to get better at keeping our pipeline filled. And if you've been churning through staff, here's the thing, it might be you. And we have an expert here who's going to be talking about how we all can get better at interviewing so that we don't get fooled by those people who just know how to interview well and actually aren't qualified for your job. Now, my guests have amazing insight to share. So if you're unsure about how to stay calm during challenging times in your business, inflation, unsure whether or not this recession is ever going to come, I've got someone here who's going to give you real action tips to help you stay focused on what's really important in your life and in your business. And we're going to learn what you need to do to rev up your sales as we are in 2024. And you are in the right place if you want to learn how to get better at interviewing prospective employees for your business. Now, the Small Biz Chat podcast is a peer-to-peer mentoring interview show where we give invaluable advice to small business owners that otherwise you might have to pay for. The mission of the Small Biz Chat podcast is to end small business failure. Hopefully you're watching us on my Small Biz Lady YouTube channel or my Small Biz Lady Facebook page. And please be sure to share and like and leave comments if you hear something amazing that you're going to implement in your business. Now, the goal of the Small Biz Chat podcast is to give you sage advice from multiple angles so that you can take your business to the next level. Now it's time for me to introduce my guest. My first guest is supernatural coach, Dr. Angela Pipersburgh, sales expert, Matt Ryder, and HR expert, Anna Papalia. And I am so excited to learn more from all of them. Now it's time for me to introduce my guest, Dr. Angela Pipersburgh. She is a dynamic figure in the field of spiritual leadership and entrepreneurship. She is renowned for her Kingdom-Centric approach to personal and professional development. She has successfully established 4 innovative brands, including the Kingdom Chamber of Commerce, the Kingdom Business School, Shadaya Marketing and Communications, and Kingdom Investors, all aimed at uplifting Christian professionals and businesses. Known as the Supernatural Coach, Dr. Pipersburgh is committed to helping individuals discover their true identity, embrace their purpose, and realize their vision. She's published 2 books, Your Gift, It Makes Room, and Aligning with Your Destiny Connector, which are available on Amazon. For more information, go to kingdomchamberofcommerce.org. Dr. Angela, welcome to the Small Biz Chat podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm just so excited and I'm looking forward to this time with you.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So give us your backstory. How did you become a spiritual leader? And then how did you translate that into business?
Well, it all started with me being in corporate America, and got a word one day. I was being groomed to be the youngest general manager, and I had this encounter. It was basically, I need you for my kingdom. So I did grow up in a household of faith. So, I lived my life based on faith principles and was able to bring those principles into work or into the marketplace. And when I had that encounter of, I need you for a greater work than what you're doing right now, something bigger than running a very successful organization. Yes. And so that was me having my walk in water experience where I left out with, I always say, a word from God and a yes from my husband. And we started out this work of just gathering entrepreneurs together. And what I thought was just going to be a networking opportunity led to something even greater. And 19 years later, we just celebrated our 19th anniversary. Here's the Kingdom Chamber of Commerce, where we're integrating business with faith, where we bring the supernatural to the marketplace, though we recognize that we all answer to a higher calling, which is the man upstairs, as some would refer to him. And so it's amazing because it gives us the opportunity to really bring what we learned, which is faith. Faith is that thing that you can't see, but yet it guides you, gives you the principles for success. And it's really an anchor. And it's an anchor that causes you to be unmovable regardless of economic trends. It causes you to be unrecognizable because you start experiencing success and supernatural success as well. And it really allows you to be able to have that vision and to fulfill the assignment that you were placed here on planet Earth to do. I'm big on purpose. I'm big on assignment. No one was born and placed here on planet Earth just to exist. We were all here to fulfill an assignment. The thing about it, Melinda, is that we understand what that assignment truly is and that we stay in the flow of our assignment. And we just move, with the confidence that we can do it. We're all victorious. We can get it done, but we need a community. We can't do it alone.
So how can faith really be a source of resilience and coping for business leaders? Because it's hard to run a business, right? Defeat is always around the corner, right? Any given day, something big or small can clothesline you in a business. So how can you lean on your faith in challenging times?
Well, and especially during challenging times is what you really you get to understand really who you are. You understand that it becomes that anchor. It becomes that foundation. It causes you to bounce back. Not to say you won't have challenges. I would say that one of the hardest things to do, and those that are entrepreneurs will understand, it's running a business. It is not easy. And the economic trends, the wind keeps blowing. Sometimes you're sailing and then all of a sudden the weather, the water starts getting rough. But being able to have something that you could hold on to, which for me is the word of God, being able to understand case studies that I could go back and pull on and rely upon, being able to understand that my belief system is everything, that I have a God that I trust, and I understand that I'm not alone. And I think that is everything now more than ever, being able to understand that we're not in this alone. When you know that you could hold on to something that's unmovable, you understand? And that's where the faith comes in. Your faith becomes so unmovable that you can trust. The word of God says, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not to your own understanding. That is everything. The courage that it gives you, Joshua 1:8 and Joshua 1:8. So it's really understanding that you are aligning with your maker. You're taking words that, for those of us that are of faith, understand that you just read and now you're bringing it into the marketplace. This word shall not depart out of your mouth, but you shall meditate upon it day and night. What are you doing when you're meditating? You're now causing it to be the way how you think, that positive thinking, right? And now you're taking that and you're saying, okay, fine, I can do this. I can be strong regardless of the situations. No business, believing for sales, going out there and getting clients, employees walking out on you, whatever the circumstance or the situations, you become so strong and so resilient that even when you're encountering challenging times, Melinda, you're able to bounce back. And I think that is everything now more than ever. And not only that, maybe the business you start off with is not doing well. And so maybe you need to try something new, being able to understand the fact that, hey, listen, I got this. I can do this because it's not me who's doing it, but I have a backup. I have a whole team that's supporting me that may not just be the team that you see.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that you mentioned this earlier, and I've heard you say this in other settings that we've been in each other's company, about your goal is to bring the spiritual realm into the marketplace. What do you mean by that?
Being able is for those of us that are believers, being able to be truly who you are. One of the biggest challenge I had when I left corporate America was I felt like I was not myself, even being in the workplace. And there's so many people living double lives. And so being able to understand that as a believer, you understand that you answer to a higher calling. How can I now become my authentic self? And that was something that I was missing. There's some environments that I went in, it just didn't feel like I fit in. being able to bring who you are to the marketplace, being able to operate your business with a spirit of excellence, mastery, being the best that you could be, being able to understand how you treat others, the golden rule, treat others the way you want to be treated, being able to understand the importance of really supporting others, that it's not just about you, giving the best service that you could give, be the best in your industry, and really being able to understand the economic trends and mastery. They're two different kingdoms. There's a kingdom of this world, right? And then there's a kingdom of darkness. And so we need to be able to understand that as us as kingdom believers, as kingdom citizens, that we understand there's two economies. The economy of this world is shifting. It's like quicksand. It keeps moving. You wake up one day, you're dealing with one situation. You go to bed one day, you wake up, it's something else. So what do? You have to be able to understand the importance to latch yourself on and to be able to have that faith and have that courage that, regardless of what happens around you as a citizen of the kingdom, you will be successful. Why? Because you're bringing the supernatural. You're bringing the supernatural into the marketplace. You're bringing your faith. You're bringing everything that you believe. You're bringing those case studies, and you're bringing in your intellect, right? Because we understand so many times we want to reflect just only upon what we are, our own ability, but it's not just about your ability. There's a higher way and there's a better way of how we can do business when we don't rely just upon ourselves. So when I talk about bringing the supernatural into the marketplace, is exactly that. We are bringing in our faith into the marketplace. We're bringing in that supernatural ability into the marketplace, and understand that we can be successful when we don't depend only upon ourselves, and when we understand the importance of supporting others, and then also the level of success that we're to walk in.
I want to switch gears with you just a little bit and talk about having a strong sense of faith and engaging your employees, and how you can leverage that for motivation and engagement. But don't you also have to kind of walk a fine line to make sure that you're not doing something that feels like a demand? Do you know what I mean? So can you talk to us a little bit about, ways in which you have engaged employees around faith, and how that's actually strengthened your business?
Yeah, that's very, very, that's like a fine line. Because understand, even when you're interviewing somebody, and you really can't just say to them, well, are you a believer? You can't do that, right? But you understand one thing, that you have principles and values and ethics by which you conduct your life, and the way how you run your business, that hopefully they're able to see the fact that you care for them. It doesn't matter who says they're a believer or not a believer, who answer to a higher calling or not. How do you treat your people? Right? I think that is everything. You treat others the way you want to be treated, and people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And so when you're in a position now where you are able to really care for them and engage them, show them the vision of the organization, communicate that vision to them, get them to rally around your vision, and they understand what you stand for. I know so many entrepreneurs that answer to a higher calling, that are believers. You are the believer, not the business. And so we have to understand that. So I just happen to run my life and live my life with morals and principles, and I'm being respectful of where people are, regardless of what they believe in or what they follow. And hopefully they'll see that your life is peaceful. They'll see that you live a certain way. They'll see that your life is joyful now more than ever. And maybe they may want to learn a little bit more about what you're doing. So when it comes to the workplace, it's really an opportunity where the vision and the mission of the organization really speaks, and then the people that are behind the vision hopefully are those that are sensitive enough to understand that we meet people where they are.
Exactly. I love it. And when we come back on the SmallBizChat podcast, we're going to be talking more with Dr. Angela Pipersburgh about the role of faith in your business. You're watching the SmallBizChat podcast, and we will be right back. Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, and I want to welcome you to Small Biz Lady University. Our mission here is to end small business failure. So all of the courses here are about two things: how to become your own boss, or how to make money online. So that's what we do here. So whether you want to learn about email marketing and sales funnels, or you're ready to get started with social media selling, or if you're really just getting started with e-commerce, you might want to jump into our How to Sell and Market Online course. Either way, if you want to learn how to become your own boss and do it well, I have everything you need here at smallbizladyuniversity.com. If you have any questions or have any technical problems getting signed up, just email us at support@melindaemerson.com. Take care. Welcome back to the Small Biz Chat podcast. I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, your host, and we've been talking with Dr. Angela Pipersburgh about the role of faith in business and bringing the spiritual realm into the workplace. Angela, now this might be a tough question for you. How can business leaders balance their personal faith with their professional decision-making, particularly when a hard decision has to be made, like layoffs? Can you talk about that?
Ooh, yes, I can. We have experienced that as well. And again, like I said, as much as you're a believer, understand you're running an organization, and an organization is an entity to itself. And so when decisions must be made from a financial standpoint, of course, you'll pray about it. You'll seek counsel for it. For us, we have Chassis, the Holy Spirit, who leads and guides and directs us. But understand there are times when the numbers just don't make sense, and you do have to let go. Now, one thing you can do, at least I've done this before, where I have gone out looking for opportunities for where our employees can actually be placed, right? And so you try to do your best to be able to make sure they're placed properly. But I'm telling you, as long as you're running a business, it is an organization to itself. You will have to make those hard decisions, but your employees know your heart, and you're looking for the right place for them where they can be, whether it's an interim situation or a situation where they can actually now have that income be replaced.
Do you feel like Christian entrepreneurs are creating a movement right now? Like, I feel like one of the things that I do every year on Martin Luther King Day, I actually release a blog post called The 10 Bible Verses Every Small Business Owner Needs for that year. And I've been doing it since 2010. And literally those blog posts are the number one blog post clicked on my site, year in, year out, all 13, 14 of them that I have written. And I'm just wondering, do you feel like there's a movement afoot of Christian entrepreneurs not being afraid to say, who and what they are?
I really, really do think so. I mean, I started this journey 19 years ago, and a lot of people were not as bold with their faith as they are now. I'm bold with my faith because, listen, this is my anchor. This is what I stand on. This is what keeps me going. And I think what it is that folks have come to the place of identity where they're recognizing who they truly are. They understand the potential that's on the inside of them. They understand the purpose. They understand the very breath that we breathe doesn't belong to us. And when you get to the place that you understand that, listen, I have more that are with me than more that are against me, it does not matter. You're going to stand up and say, and when you understand that the greatest business book that was ever written has all the case studies of success, and that he wants me wealthy, and he wants me successful, and he wants those creativity, those innovative ideas to be able to be pouring out, and I could bring a change to planet Earth. Oh yeah, you'll just stand up and say, I have a voice and I'm not ashamed of who I am.
I love it. I love it. Well, tell me this. What is the best business advice you've ever been given?
The best business advice that I've ever been given is to make sure that you don't make a decision when you are in a place where you're going through changes in your life. And that has saved me so many times. I will make sure that I always recognize, like, for example, if you're moving, if you're bringing out a new product, if you have changes in your marriage, a whole lot of stuff in your family dynamics that's happening, don't make a quick decision. Make sure also that, for me, I was told by my leader to understand that my mentor, Dr. Miles Monroe, he said, always make sure you seek the Holy Spirit before you make any major decision. And that has saved me time and time and time again.
Well, I think that's good advice. Thank you so much, Angela. I really appreciate your insight about faith in business. Up next, we're going to talk about how to develop a sales process for your business. You're watching the Small Biz Chat podcast, and we will be right back. Are you ready to become a boss? Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady. Click the button below and take my free boss quiz. This assessment will help you learn your entrepreneur type and find the right business model for you. Get this information about the number one asset in your business. Yeah, that's you. Hi, everybody. Thank you all for joining us on the Small Biz Chat podcast. Hopefully, you're watching us on my Small Biz Lady YouTube channel or on my Small Biz Lady Facebook page. Be sure to share and like and leave a comment. Or if you have an idea for a topic for an upcoming episode, leave that for us as well. We want to make sure we give you what you need to succeed in business. Now it's time for me to introduce my guest, Matt Ryder. He's a former Special Forces serviceman, founder of Sales Sniper, and currently serves as the CEO of the 7th Level Group. Matt's rapid ascent in high-ticket sales showcased his unique approach, which was his adoption of NEPQ, the 7th level method, which quickly propelled him to a consistent 100K per month within 90 days. With a global reach, Matt oversees sales teams and passionately ensures broad access to transformative training. His CEO role at 7th Level reflects his commitment to empowering individuals in all aspects of life through valuable tools, training, and strategies. For more information, go to 7thlevelhq.com. Matt, welcome to the Small Biz Chat podcast.
Hello, nice to be here. Thank you so much.
Well, I really appreciate you because you're joining us all the way from Australia. So I know it's early where you are. So
I had to turn the camera upside down and everything.
Well, thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about you. How did you become this sales beast, right?
Yeah, so I was in special was in high school and then went to university. I was going to be a doctor. And then decided about 6 months in that I would rather join the army, much to my parents' chagrin. And then so dropped out, joined the military, and then ended up going into special operations and then became a sniper. Did that for a number of years and got deployed and did the thing that young 20-year-old men do in the military. And then from there, when I got out, sort of opened, I went and became a personal trainer because when you get out of the military, you've only got two options, become a cop or a personal trainer. So I chose personal trainer, right? And then after that, ended up opening up a gym, ended up opening up 17 more of them with a sort of like small conglomerate of business partners. We had like 120 staff. Then from there, became a relatively disenfranchised with how the business was sort of operating in terms of its sort of treatment of people and some other things like that. And so I basically sold my share, sort of borderline walked away from it just before COVID. And what I was doing in that organization was I was really focusing on the opening of the new facilities and then doing all the sales and teaching the sales and kind of ensuring that the front end money kept coming in. So I was selling basically for about 10 years. I was selling probably 5 to 6 days a week for 7 to 8 hours a day. Just making sure that we had enough memberships to come through. And then from there, when I transitioned out of that, I started my own business because I didn't really have much. I'd invested everything in the business. We sort of sold, but sort of walked away. So we didn't get that much for it because I really wanted out. And so we didn't have much money. And my wife was pregnant with my second child. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll just do my own thing. And so ended up sort of cold calling gyms and going like, hey, I'm pretty good at fitness sales. And they were like, yep. And so I ended up doing fitness sales for people's, and then I ended up sort of calling a lot of gyms and getting a lot of clients doing that because it's a very unique skill set selling fitness over the phone. There's not many people that can actually do it. And so after a while, I ended up having an international slew of clients, and I was selling at 5 o'clock in the morning. And then I would sort of time zone hop across the world. So I would sell like US, and then I would sell Australia, and then I would sell back to US and then to UK in the evening. And then I would come back in the morning and go back to Australia. So from like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. to like 11 p.m.
Wow.
Hey, Sydney's an expensive place. So, nice things cost nice things money, right? So you got to do the things that you got to do. And then from there, ended up sort of the marketing companies who were doing the sales for the gyms got in touch with me, and they were like, hey, what are you doing? this is unique. And they sent me a lot of clients, and so I started building that side out. And then the marketing companies eventually came to me and asked me to do their sales for them. And by this time I had like a team of people, and I was sort of building everything out the way that I wanted to build things out, and setting everything up from an ecosystem standpoint, to where it was a relatively optimized machine and fairly profitable. And there weren't many leads that were getting wasted because I was used to spending my own money on leads, right? So, so then I started doing the sales for the marketing companies, and then like the business coaches, the marketing companies came to me like, what are you doing? And that's how I sort of got into like the more like higher ticket sort of consultancy type space, where I was like selling those kind of services. When I was doing that, I became quite successful. I was doing fairly well. And then I ran into a guy called Jeremy Miner, who had a like sort of sales methodology called NEPQ. I paid him 80% of everything that I had to coach me. And then over the course of about 9 months, I sort of dove very deep and very obsessively into his methodology, became quite enamored with it because it was very different to what I was used to. It was very leaned out, very subtle, very strategic, but a phenomenal experience for the prospect. I saw my personal income go a lot higher, go sort of into the 7 figures as like a commission only closer. And then started seeing my team do a lot better as well. And then eventually became his sales guy, then eventually became business partner and CEO. And we've been sort of doing the thing for a while now. And that's, we have a couple of different, sales snipers, so like that done for you side still goes. We do the sales we're generally under an NDA for some people that you definitely know. So we sort of run the sales for them, and we train, manage, develop the sales processes, architect the system. And then from there, like we provide our own reps, to actually do that for them. And it's like an external sales function. And one of the good things is that at 7th level, we have a tremendous capability of finding sales reps. We average about 4,500 to 5,000 new customers per month, in a wide range of services. So like we have a large ecosystem of salespeople. So
wow,
that's basically it. That's it in a nutshell.
that sounds really impressive. So tell me, what are the elements of a strong sales process? You build sales process for companies big and small. So what does everybody need to have?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I've built sales processes for banks, for companies worth $12 billion, and we've done it for companies that do $50,000 a month in revenue, and sort of everything in between. And I think the key thing is that you have to understand the journey and the experience that the prospect's going to go through, and then it can't all be the same. I sort of go back, and I think one of the reasons why I had a unique ability to do this was because as a sniper, like, you have to understand every variable because they're relatively important. So if you're like the direction you're shooting, the elevation you're shooting, the temperature outside, the wind, the distance, etc. There are a lot of variables that would affect it. And so for me, every single time, no matter what I did, I always set up a tracking system to be able to minimize variables, because I wanted to work on the things that were actually important. Whereas a lot of people, they don't track and they don't set up data in a way where it's actually effective. They just set it up to have a pretty dashboard, look at it, and then say, why don't I have enough money at the end of the month? But in reality, there are a lot of small nuances and small differences that setting up a sales process to accurately track and to have like a bespoke way process for someone to go through, depending on where they came from. Like I'll give you an example. Like you wouldn't treat an inbound lead the same way that you would treat a referral, the same way that you would treat an email, the same way you would treat a website inquiry. Like they can all go into similar pathways, but it needs to be explored that there's a potential that they should be different. Some sales processes need to be intentionally extended to add friction points and potential drop off in order to figure out what's going right and wrong. Some can, and then from there you can be shortened, right? Ideal, everyone just, you pick up the phone or you meet person once and you get a bunch of money out of it. Like that's not reality. So what we need to do is find like, what is the right amount of time and what are the things they need to experience in order to put the salesperson and the business in a position to be able to have a high percentage or likelihood of converting the right people. which is another really important. So having really clear client avatars and stuff like that. But it's really about mapping out the ideal process, figuring out what they need to see, and then from there figuring out what are the friction points, so potential drop-offs, and then putting in a tracking system in place, and then being able to then delineate the skill-based activities along the way and the process-based activities. I can give you a quick example of that. So let's just say we're doing outbound dialing, and then the prospect picks up, and then we talk to them. So the outbound dial is obviously one thing. The pickup is another sort of like decision point. They can pick up or they can not pick up, right? There's plenty of things that you can do to increase pickup rate. You know, A2P compliance, local area dialing, speed to lead, etc. There are a lot of things there that would affect the pickup rate. And then from there, if somebody picks up, there are three options. There's a voicemail, there's, hey, please go away and don't ever call me again, or call me later. And then there's a conversation, right? The first one, the actual pickup, is a process-based because there are things that you can do from a back-end standpoint that would make that more effective. It's not a skill, okay? But then the once someone's picked up, the conversation versus go away rate, that is a skill thing. And it's a skill that's specific to the opening line of the script. And so if someone, and that is a top of funnel sort of activity. And so if you get someone much better at that, they will have a tremendous amount more people that go through the entire process. Therefore, you'll make more sales by proxy without that person really having to get any better. And everyone's running around in sales training land trying to get better at handling objections. But in reality, they have no idea what they're good at or bad at. And so a good sales process creates an ideal scenario for the prospect, but it also facilitates a system where a salesperson, a sales manager, and a business can identify the failings of the process and the failings of the individual who's doing it, and then put things in place to tangibly fix it step by step.
So you're saying that sometimes it's the system, sometimes it's the sales rep, but the point is you got to be tracking everything. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think the key is to make things probably unnecessarily complex in the beginning and then simplify them as you go. You know, in terms of your actual tracking, like if you track everything, you can figure out what's not worth tracking. The issue is if you don't know what's worth tracking. And it's not that I know it's worth tracking, but I know how to figure out what is worth tracking over time. Like I never would have thought a year ago that that the total delinquency rate of credit cards in the United States would have affected my business. However, it does. I've done the analysis. The two big things that really affect us as a business to consumer business of a high volume clientele, one is housing prices and two is delinquency rates, because recently a lot of funding people have brought in, after speaking with funding partners, they've brought in debt to equity ratio as one of the key factors instead of just income and credit. So what does that mean to me? I can do an analysis and I can say, what are the lowest debt to equity ratio people in America? A lot of the time it's like 29 to 39-year-old males. Why? Because they've just started their family. They just bought their house. They haven't paid any of it off, right? So in marketing, we can sort of start to use that to our advantage, and we can start to put them down different pathways and, you know what I mean, and sort of segment people out based on demographics, because you get all that kind of stuff from marketing, and then show people different things. And then you can have a higher efficacy rate of your sales because you're showing them a more appropriate product for the economic time. And so like, I didn't know that a year ago, you know, and so after doing the analysis, you know, there's another one. I wouldn't have thought that a 2-pay would have a lower fulfillment rate than a 3-pay, but it does by a fairly significant margin in our business. So we don't offer 2-pays. You know, there's all kinds of stuff, like you just don't know what you don't know. And so by tracking as much as you can, and the good thing is with things like ChatGPT these days, they have an automatic data analysis tool, and there's a few other things that you can do to, you know, streamline a few things if you don't have a large team like I do. But you know, I think that the more you can track and then sit down and spend the time and try and find some correlative patterns and think how a lazy man thinks, which is like, what's the least amount of things that I could possibly change to have a really positive impact and influence on what's going on.
Well, what about developing your sales goals? How do you suggest people go about doing that?
I think it depends on the business, but if I had to speak to like the sort of more like entrepreneur type person, I would say the way that I recommend doing it is, first of all, what do you want to take out of the business? That's a very important metric that people don't really talk about very much. How much money do you want to make? Let's just say it's like 500K, whatever it is, right? I want to take on 500K. All right, cool. What would the business need to make in order for me to do that? Given my historicals, not like some pie in the sky number, right? And then from there, like that becomes my revenue projection for the year, right? And then I kind of work that back month by month, knowing the sort of growth curve, or if I'm not growing that year, if I am growing that year. And then from there, break that down line item by line item. For me, what I do is I break that down and I create the forecast and the budget based off that. And then the sales targets that they usually get are about 5% higher than that. Depending on the size that we're sort of doing, it can be anywhere from 2 to 5. Sometimes 5 is an awful lot of money and it just sort of becomes a little bit untenable, but that's also the number they need to hit in order to get their bonuses. So yeah. So like, and then that is a number that's deconflicted against like customer service to ensure that we can actually handle that volume of client. And then we break that down as to sales targets per product. And then that is what marketing uses in order to put together the like segmented marketing budget, and so that we can sort of market the right products and services.
So let's talk about how to generate qualified lead, because there's a difference between a marketing qualified lead and a sales qualified lead. And how do you get from sort of like top of the funnel to a sales qualified lead?
So I think the most important thing is understanding your client avatar for each product. So there's obviously like an overarching client avatar for the entire business. And then from there, like if you have multiple products, or if you have one product, it's really simple. But like we have very, very defined and distinct client avatars for each product. And that's based on, survey data, focus groups that we've done with clients, et cetera, et cetera. And then also like, payment fulfillment rates and all that kind of good stuff. And then from there, we create marketing mechanisms to like disqualify. The reason why we do that, because I don't want to tell everyone to do that, is because we have a tremendously high lead volume. Last month, we generated 35,000 leads. And so like, we don't want 35,000 people, right? So like we have a disqualification form of marketing where we bring a lot of people in and then we push them out as we go. So, and then the sales qualified lead comes in like at a particular point, there's a handover where they can go down 2 options. One is that a person will call them to see if they're in the client avatar. And then if they are, they'll have a discussion with them and then send them off to a sales process. So they're like the sort of gray area people. Or they have an application form that they'll fill out where, depending on how they answer, they get sent different places. And so it's really all about defining a client avatar and then figuring out what the optimal amount of people is. And the reason why you would change that, like I think that on a principled stance is a good way to do it, but you don't want to disqualify people, a lot of people like we do, if you don't have an awful lot of leads. And if my lead flow dropped to say 10,000 leads, right, for this month, I would push a lot more people through and have the sales team do the sifting instead of having the marketing team. And the less opportunity that you have, the further you push the sifting towards the sales. The more opportunity you have, the further away from the sales you push the sifting, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because you want to be full with the highest possible quality lead, but be full. So if there's one month where they're full of people who are a 2 out of 10, hey, at least you're full. And if there's one month where you're full with 4 out of 5, with like a 9 out of 10, fantastic, home run, everyone's happy as Larry. So it's really a kind of variable metric that's based on opportunity. But it's really important that those client avatars are dialed in so that you can have a very, very clear distinction of who should be sold what, and then have that conversation each sort of month or each quarter based on opportunity and volume on how you're pushing those people through.
Now, I want to switch gears with you a little bit and talk about how to hire a great salesperson, because I think this is a big challenge for a small business, especially because there's seasoned seasoned sales experts out here. There's newbies just out of school. What is the best sort of like salesperson avatar that you could go after?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because everybody wants sales killers. Right? But I think the first thing you should do is take an actual audit of what you're offering. And I know that you love your business, and I know that like that's great, but you probably aren't at a stage where a really good sales rep will consider you. That's right. So, like having been a very in-demand salesperson myself, I would only choose the absolute best. Like if you only have one marketing channel, I would never sell for you. Right? Like if you're relying only on Meta, sorry. If you don't have a comprehensive content strategy, sorry. If you don't have like multiple tiered products, sorry. If I can't call your clients and have them have a good experience, sorry. Right? The reason being is because there are a hell of a lot more businesses than there are good salespeople. Right? So salespeople, for lack of a better term, are the hot chick at the bar. And it will always be that way. And so you want to set up your business to not require a rock star. And if you do, there's something wrong. So, and getting a rock star early can actually be a real problem. I have been in 2 businesses that I was the salesperson, and when I left, they went bankrupt within about 6 to 7 months because I was selling an awful lot of people. They made the assumption their marketing was good, and I would tell them, hey, this marketing needs a real revamp. This isn't good. I'm just good at creating a comprehensive strategy that sort of picks up a lot of the slack for poor marketing. But they didn't know what I was doing because I was doing it myself. And so I'm because I've owned my own businesses and I'm very data and process driven. And so, and for me, I found it quite scary to put somebody else's to put my livelihood for my kids and my wife in somebody else's hands in the marketing department. So I would do an awful lot of stuff to really generate more leads in the ecosystem and get the CRM and just do all kinds of things like that. And so the key would be like do an assessment, figure out where you're at, and don't set up for a unicorn, because if you do get one and you don't take the feedback of like, hey, this marketing isn't good, then you expect somebody else to come in, then you make your KPIs what that person was doing. But Steph Curry be doing Steph Curry things. You can't get a guy off the bench to come in and be Steph Curry. Like it just doesn't work that way. Right. And so like you just give that guy the ball and he makes magic happen. Like that's just what it is. And if you get one of those guys early, it will destroy a few things because you will expect that forever and you'll be chasing it. And so set the business up to be appropriate for the level of rep that you want. A sales rep will not come in and design your sales process. It is not their job. And the person who can do that will leave quickly because they're a rocket ship on the way up, right? So if you're expecting that, then just hire a professional to set up your sales process and then bring a person into a process that's cogent and makes sense. The second thing is like, figure out if you're going high reward, high risk, or low reward, low risk. Are you going base plus commissions? Or are you going commission only? There's obviously, there's obviously HR considerations to that in terms of like what it is they're doing and where they're doing it. But, most people who are really good are going to want a higher risk model because they back their skills. And then from there, it's about, so once you have that ecosystem, I like to interview. I don't think qualifications mean much right now when it comes to sales, right? If they have NEPQ, obviously they're better, right? Which is what we sell. But I like to give a little bit of pushback and tell the person I think that they're not right for the job and see what happens. And then I also like to just ensure that they have the right attributes and that they're ethical and all that kind of stuff. And but it's very difficult to tell that. And salespeople are like sort of used sports cars. They can look really nice in the lot, but it's not till you start driving it that you're really going to make sure. So I tend to overhire, and then from there, like we cut back with salespeople, but definitely give them something that they need to object to. So I would say, hey man, like this has been a really good conversation. I'm just not 100% convinced that you're right that you're a right fit for the job, and then just see what happens. If they go, oh well, that's unfortunate, they're not a very good salesperson. If they actually sort of like go, oh well, help me understand that. And they actually go and try and like rebut and sort of handle your objection, then chances are it's worth giving them a shot.
I love it. I love it. When we come back on the Small Biz Chat podcast, we're going to talk more about sales and how we can all get better. You're watching the Small Biz Chat podcast. I'm Melinda Emerson, your host, and we will be right back. Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady, and I want to welcome you to Small Biz Lady University. Our mission here is to end small business failure. So all of the courses here are about two things: how to become your own boss or how to make money online. So that's what we do here. So whether you want to learn about email marketing and sales funnels, or you're ready to get started with social media selling, or if you're really just getting started with e-commerce, you might want to jump into our How to Sell and Market Online course. Either way, if you want to learn how to become your own boss and do it well, I have everything you need here at smallbizladyuniversity.com. If you have any questions or have any technical problems getting signed up, just email us at support@melindaemerson.com. Take care. Welcome back to the Small Biz Chat podcast. I'm Melinda Emerson, your host, and we're talking with Matt Ryder about all things sales and how we can all get better. All right, Matt, talk to me about leads. Like, how many leads should a professional service business, for example, be bringing in every week?
Probably the exact amount that the data says they need to hit their sales targets, I would say. It's actually like a formula. Have you ever heard the term MIND? It's most important numbers and drivers. Sort of usually goes along with KPIs and OKRs and all the other fantastic TLAs, which stands for three-letter acronym, obviously. It's a really good system that allows you to kind of figure out exactly all the numbers that need to be hit based off like historicals or some pretty good assumptions. And so it starts off with your revenue target, like we spoke about earlier. And then from there, let's just say, like, I'm going to break down from lead source A. Let's say we want to get, we need to generate X amount of dollars, like $1 million, right? And let's just say it's a $10,000 sale. So I need to do like 1,000 sales or something like that. I'm not very good at math. So I'd be like, let's just say I'm just going to go with 100 sales because easy. Now, if I need to make 100 sales, then let's just say our sales team closes at 50%. So I need 200 sales calls to show up. Okay. Then from there, to get 200 sales calls to show up, because we're not going to have a 100% show up rate, I'm just going to use another easy number. Let's say it's a 75% show up rate. So we have 300 bookings, right? So 300 bookings is 200 show up is, what would that be? 66%, sorry. And then is a 50% close rate. And then we make 100 sales, right? So, and then from there, it'd be like, all right, cool. Whatever, let's just say that they're booking in straight from from a application form. Well, how many people need to fill out the application form in order to get to 300 bookings? Let's just say it's 600. Okay. And then it's how many people need to get into page A to see that application form. Let's just say it's 3,000. Okay. And then from there, to get 3,000 to get to that application form, how many people need to click through to the ad to get to the page, right? And then from there, it's just a way backwards. Like, what's the click-through rate? And then from there, it's like, okay, well, what's our average cost per click? So now we have a budget for that particular campaign. How often do we have to rotate the ad creative? On a high spend month, you have to rotate ad creative a lot, right? Like, I think last month we spent $846,000 on paid advertising. So that there's a lot of ad creative that goes into that, because we had a particularly high month because of an event. We had a 20,000 person event. So all that kind of stuff. And so then from there, you basically have, from that channel, based off your historicals, exactly how many people you need to get through the sale process, and then exactly how many leads you need in order to facilitate that. And so it goes back to what we were talking about before. You just want to be full. And so be as full as you can be. And I don't like to delineate really good leads and bad leads, because, especially if it's a financial qualification, because money is tidal. There are times where I've been doing quite well. There are times when I've not been doing well. There's also times when I'm doing well where I have more cash or less cash, depending on investment, reinvestment, whatever it may be, right? And so I like to create pipelines And conversations are one of the best ways to do that. And I don't think that one of my biggest bugbears, and fire anybody or don't hire anybody that says this, who says that like, oh, those leads aren't worth my time. It's like, first of all, everyone's of the same value. I don't care how much money you have. That really doesn't have a bearing on how much value you have as a person. And second of all, like, if I'd talk to them, why wouldn't you? It's like, they might buy in 6 months. And if your product or service is genuinely a net good, and it really helps people, because all businesses just kind of, they either fulfill an emotional need or solve a problem and hopefully do it at a profit, then give that person the opportunity to see what you do, because you might solve a serious problem, and maybe they can't buy it there and then. It doesn't mean that they can't buy it in 3, 6, or 12 months. And that's how successful businesses and salespeople create pipelines of lots of people who want to do business with them, because they are talking to people and they are out there. And the more people you talk to, the more likelihood you have of having people either think you're a moron or think you're good enough at your job to where they want to do business with you.
All right, Matt, tell me the best business advice you've ever been given.
So one of my mentors, or my main mentor, is a guy called Kim Manley, who was the CEO of Smirnoff. He the best advice he ever gave me was that you will never make truly good business decisions until you are independently wealthy of the business. And so that really stuck with me, because I think I was very much in the mode for a long time of this constant reinvestment back into the business of all the money, because I had this vision of creating this monster. And listen, I have a pretty big business. However, during that time, the amount that I foregoed personally, I think looking back, was over the top. And the only people who really benefited, the only people who that really detracted from, was my family. And so and also my staff and myself as well, because I need the business for money, it's very difficult for me to make the right decision for the business. There's a reason why Bob Iger is worth $690 million. There's a reason why CEOs are paid so much money, and it's a lot of it is really to insulate their need for the money. If you're paid $50 million a year, you're pretty good 3 months in, right? You're pretty fine. And so if you need the business for money, you will always make a more employee mindset decision. So once I sort of, at least for me, figured that out, I was able to structure the business in a way where I was able to make a good, very, I would say, healthy amount of personal income. Bring it to someone who really knows what they're doing, like a wealth management person, and then from there, generate a pretty significant income outside of the business, which then freed me up to really make fairly money agnostic business decisions, which has sort of taken me from working 50 to 60 hours a week to working 20 to 25, and having the business be kind of more efficient than what it ever has been, and profitable. So
love it. Matt, thank you so much for being here all the way from Australia. I so appreciate you. And you have really given us so much great information. And when we come back, we're going to talk about how all of us should be interviewing better in our businesses. You're watching the SmallBizChat podcast, and we will be right back. Are you ready to become a boss? Hi, I'm Melinda Emerson, Small Biz Lady. Click the button below and take my free boss quiz. This assessment will help you learn your entrepreneur type and find the right business model for you. Get this information about the #1 asset in your business. Yeah, that's you. Hi, everybody. You're watching the SmallBizChat podcast, and I'm so excited you're with us. Now it's time for all of us to learn about the new science of interviewing. My guest is Anna Papalia, and she is an HR expert with over 1.5 million followers across her social media platforms. She is the author of the new book, Interviewology, The New Science of Interviewing, and she has consulted with Fortune 100 companies, taught at Temple University, and coached over 10,000 clients to interview better. Her groundbreaking discovery of interview styles revolutionized the way we teach and understand interviewing. She's also a public speaker at the Society for Human Resource Management. For more information, you can go to theinterviewology.com. Anna, welcome to the Small Biz Chat podcast.
Thanks, Melinda. It's nice to be here.
Oh my gosh. So tell me, how did you become this HR czarina of interviewing skills? Like, how did you go on this path?
Well, I, like most people, sort of stumbled into it. I went to school for psychology, and I really thought that I was going to become a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a therapist. And I had an internship, and I realized very quickly that I hated that. And I quickly made a little detour, and I thought, well, I really like organizational development, and I really was always fascinated in work. So I had another internship in human resources, and I liked it better than my previous internship, and I started right out of college as an HR generalist, but I was really bad at it, really bad at it. Probably should have been fired. I was making lots of mistakes. And luckily, one of the corporate recruiters literally dumped a pile of resumes on my desk and said, "I'm just too busy. Can you help me call these people?" And I thought to myself, they're going to pay me to talk to people on the phone? Yes, please, I'll do that. And it was truly love at first sight. I immediately switched into a recruiting role where I was promoted several times. And then I realized if I really wanted to learn how to recruit, I'd have to become a contingency recruiter, which I did. And then I was recruited to become a director of talent acquisition for an organization. And in that role, I recruited everyone from mail clerks to executive vice presidents. I built an intern program that the company's still using to this day. I truly loved my job. I thought that it was the intersection of all the things I cared about: organizational development and partnering with hiring managers to find the right fit for their department. And every hiring manager had different needs, and I loved it. But I had this weird feeling. I was unfulfilled. I wasn't totally content. And I went to the president and I said, "I'm young. I don't have kids yet. I have a little money saved. I want to start a business, and I want to teach people how to interview." And like almost everyone, he thought I was completely crazy. Like, that's not a business. But I just knew that there was no other place for me in that organization. I could have still been working there to this day. But I got out in 2011, left the corporate world, and started doing just that, teaching job seekers and hiring managers how to interview better. The dean at Temple University, where I had hired all of my interns, asked me, "Come on in, can you teach all of the students how to interview? Because you know what they're doing right and wrong. You were hiring them last year." So for 12 years, I taught at Temple University. And in that time, I collected a lot of research, and I interviewed thousands of people and helped thousands of students. And I realized that the way that we teach people how to interview is really ineffective. So I set out to make it better, and kind of calling on my background in psychology and what I went to school for, I thought, what if I could write a personality assessment that would determine someone's interview style, and I could help people better? And what I realized is we don't all interview the same way. And I discovered the 4 interview styles, and that gets me to present day.
So talk to me about, what is the major disconnect between interview performance and who will actually be good at a job?
Well, first of all, the biggest disconnect is that we even believe that interview performance has anything to do with someone's performance on the job. We have to step back first and think that we even believe that how someone interviews is a good correlation on how they'll be in the job. So first of all, in America especially, we conduct what are called social interviews, and we have conversations with people to see if we like them, to click with them. But most of the jobs that we're hiring for don't require those skills. So there's a major disconnect. Are we, if you are interviewing for an actuary, for example, or an accountant, Does that accountant need to, like, you know, have all of these social skills that we emphasize in an interview? No. So first and foremost, we need to get really clear on the type of interview that we're having so we can then better understand, you know, is this going to be a good correlation, right? If you're interviewing a salesperson, for example, then sure, you want to see if they can connect, if they're, you know, client facing, if they have strong emotional skills. Otherwise, some other jobs don't require those things that we often emphasize in interviews.
What about, like, I'm a small business owner, I'm really busy, I need to hire 2 new salespeople. You know, is this something I should consider outsourcing, or is this something that I should actually try to do myself?
Well, as a small business owner myself, I've owned a business for 12 years. It's personal, right? It depends on how much money you're making. It depends on your skill set. Some of the best advice I got when I started my business was, you know, one of your first hires needs to be someone that replaces you. And then your second hire has to be someone that is a skill that you absolutely cannot do. So I think you need to ask yourself some of those questions first. And, you know, making hires for small business owners is really difficult because it's expensive and it's a big risk. And here's the piece of advice I give all business owners. If you're going to hire, you need to prepare. And this is one of the problems that small business owners especially fall into. They think that an interview is just a conversation and I'll feel it out. That's never the way it happens. An interview is not a conversation. In fact, it should be treated like a test. You should go in prepared with great interview questions that you have created from the job description. If you know really well, and this is something that small business owners don't do, they don't think deeply about, what do I need this person to do? They're just busy and they need some help. So they're just like, I'm just going to hire someone that can help me. But then they get into a problem because those people might not have any skills that are a good match to whatever it is they need. So the first step is always figuring it out, creating that job description. From there, writing great interview questions, and then treating each interview like a test, having a structured interview. You're asking everyone the same questions. And then most importantly, getting really familiar with your own personal biases. And biases come from your preferences. In my research, when I discovered that we all interview in one of 4 ways, you're either a charmer, challenger, examiner, or harmonizer. They all prioritize different things. And we all think that everyone interviews like us. But that's the great first step in really building your self-awareness and understanding, oh, like, that's my bias. Maybe I didn't like that person because they didn't connect, or they didn't tell stories, or they seemed really private and closed off. That's just your bias, because how someone interviews doesn't mean that they're not going to be great at the job. It often just means that you may not like how someone interviews. Doesn't mean they're not going to be well qualified for the position.
Mm-hmm. Well, what other things should you be looking for as, you know, like the tactics, right? So you said, I need to prepare, you know, write a good job description. I need to have great questions. I need to ask everybody the same questions. And you said, I need to understand my biases, but what, you know, what does that, like, how do I do that, right? How do I put that mirror up to my face? Hey, Melinda, what's your issue? You know, like, how do I do that? In the course of being a small business, trying to figure that out?
Well, you can start by discovering your interview style. You can go to my website, theinterviewology.com, and take our scientifically valid interview style assessment. And if you start there and you figure out what your interview style is, you'll better understand what you prioritize and how you get someone to see you as qualified. See, charmers want to be liked in interviews. Challengers want to be respected and heard. Examiners want to get it right, and harmonizers want to fit in. And those 4 different styles go about making an impression in a totally different way. And from that, your biases come. So I think the first step is understanding your unique interview style. And then obviously I have a book coming out January 30th called Interviewology, The New Science of Interviewing, where I outline all 4 interview styles. So if you get your own personal profile, you figure out who you are. And then from there, you can start to understand how to do some people reading. right? If you understand that, hey, I'm a charmer in interviews and I want to be liked, I want to make a connection and I want to tell stories, and you get into an interview with someone who's really tough and they're asking you a bunch of questions, and you feel like you're in a firing squad, you'll be like, wait a minute, this person must be a challenger in interviews. And they interview in a totally different way than me. It doesn't mean that they don't like me. And it doesn't mean that I'm unprepared. It just means that our wires are getting crossed. So those are some of the ways that I would prepare someone for the interview process.
Well, let's talk about interview tactics. What are some good interview tactics to keep people from gaming the process? I've certainly been got before where I interviewed somebody and then they started work for me and I'm like, this is not the person that I interviewed with, right? So what kind of tactics can you use? I've heard of people saying that you should interview them 3 different ways, like a written exam, a phone interview, and then an actual in-person interview. Do you agree with all of that?
I think it's more about having rounds or phases where there are other people involved. I think so. You can't just, and this is hard for small business owners, maybe you're the only decision maker, but recruit a mentor or someone else that can interview them, not with you, but by themselves, right? So you can debrief afterwards, because some of the hardest hiring decisions to make is when you're doing it in a vacuum, because making complex decisions about people, like who to hire, when you have an impression about them, can be very difficult when you're alone. You interviewed them, you really liked them, you have this job you need filled, like you don't see the harm, right? But if you had 2 other people that also interviewed them, and you could call them up and say, well, what did you think? What was your impression? And before you recruit these people to interview with you, and hopefully those people work at your company and they're also managers, you would set out, you would write out what you want in this person. These people would be your accountability partners. It's really difficult to hire in a vacuum by yourself. So that's my biggest piece of advice, to make sure that you are getting different perspectives, so you're not having to make this decision alone.
So you're not a fan of panel interviews, I take it.
No, panel interviews are wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. If you have 3 or 4 people that are different, right? I'm not a fan of an interview where it's 3 middle-aged white guys. No, I'm not. Like, we need diversity in the interview process because we need a diversity of perspectives. So I want someone from HR. I want someone from IT. I want someone from marketing. I want some from different perspectives throughout the organization. And everyone in that panel interview has a role, has a responsibility. There's a note taker, there's a timekeeper, and everyone's asking the same questions. Now, panel interviews are great, or you can do them individually. Panel interviews often save time, though. Those 4 people are all available in that, hour and a half time frame.
Got it. Now, how do you feel about testing, like DISC profiles and Myers-Briggs and that kind of stuff? Are you a fan of that?
Well, first of all, I don't know if many people know this, but Myers-Briggs is not scientifically accurate. It's actually based on junk science. It's sort of a fun Cosmo quiz. DISC, I'm a huge fan of. It's an excellent assessment, but you can't use these as pre-employment assessments. You can use other pre-employment assessments, especially if it's geared toward the technical aptitude of the position. Let's say you're hiring for a coder or a software engineer, or someone that has a very specialized technical skill. You can give them a test on that technical skill. That's absolutely legal, and you should do that. But we don't want to test out using assessments, especially in a pre-employment process, because some of them are rife with bias. And I think DISC is wonderful, but I think it's a great communication tool post-hire and great for organizations culturally, but not in a pre-hire assessment.
All right. What is the best business advice you've ever been given?
Well, I think it comes from my favorite business book ever, which is Good to Great, which is, in order to have a successful business, you don't have to do something wildly unique. You don't have to kill yourself and bend over backwards to think of something that, is so special or something. All you have to figure out is, what can you do better than anyone else? What's your hedgehog concept? What are you uniquely gifted to do? And then show up every single day and do that. consistent discipline applied every single day creates remarkable results. And I think a lot of people think that like luck just happens to some people, or, you know, how amazing is it that they were so disciplined to stick with it? I think the discipline actually grows the more that you do it. And some of the best advice I ever got was, it really actually doesn't matter how I feel. I'm going to do the things on my calendar, right? I live and die by my goals and my calendar. So if I have to create 4 TikTok videos today, I'm creating that. It doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter what's going on. Consistent discipline applied every single day will create amazing results.
I love it. I believe that as well. Thank you so much, Anna, for being here and all of your great interview tips. What I want to do now is bring back all of my guests, Dr. Angela Pipersburgh, Matt Ryder, and Angela Papalia, and we're going to talk about what we call hit it or quit it. So each of you, I'm going to ask you all the same question. You only have 30 seconds to answer, and you can't repeat someone else's answer. All right. So Angela, you've been on ice the longest, so I'm going to come to you first, then you, Matt, then you, Angela. So my first question is, what is your favorite podcast? Favorite podcast, Angela?
The Small Business Lady.
Thank you so much. The SmallBizChat podcast. I appreciate that. You flatter me. All right, Matt, what is your favorite podcast?
I try and avoid business-based things in my off time because I do enough of that day to day. So I like comedy podcasts. There's a comedy duo in Australia called Hamish and Andy, and they're by far my favorite podcasts. Just full relaxation, laugh, and just relax.
Love it. All right. Anna, what's your favorite podcast?
Right now, I've been listening to a lot of Smartless with Will Arnett and Jason Bateman and Sean Hayes. They interview celebrities, and I love to hear about people talking about their careers and what their lives at work are like. It's a great podcast.
Love it. Love it. All right. Next question. I'm going to come to you, Matt, first, then you, Anna, then you, Angela. What is your favorite business app? Favorite business app? Matt?
The new iteration of the ChatGPT app is pretty phenomenal.
I like it as well. All right. Anna, what do you got? Favorite business app?
TikTok, hands down. It changed my business getting on TikTok and Facebook and producing reels. TikTok's a phenomenal global platform. I love it.
Angela, what's your favorite business app?
My version of ChatGPT. I know you said ChatGPT before, but it's actually one of my favorites. Anything with AI right now.
All right. You know my rule. You can't repeat somebody's answer, but I'm going to let you slide. All right. Next question. Anna, I'm coming to you first, and then you, Angela, then you, Matt. What is your favorite old school marketing tip? Old school marketing tip.
Old school. When I first started my business in 2011, I went to the library and I bought a book on guerrilla marketing techniques. And some of those techniques still stick with me to this day. And I don't know if I can say one exact tip from that, but just this idea of this sort of grassroots, being direct, being clear, being honest, and being persistent. It always sticks with me. And it's good tips when it comes to creating video content on TikTok and Facebook as well. That's guerrilla marketing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Matt, what's your favorite old school marketing tip?
I'd say the most useful for me is definitely the old 5 school principles of copywriting, which is like the 5 levels of awareness of a prospect. So unaware, problem aware, solution aware, brand aware, product aware. And if you take people through those, generally marketing and sales is pretty simple. So that's always a good one.
All right. Love it. Angela, what's your favorite old school marketing tip?
Don't give up on anybody. Walk them through the process and help them to make a decision.
I love it. I love it. All right. Last question, guys. And I'm going to start with you, Anna, and then you, Matt, and Dr. Angela. I will let you have the last word. What is the best business book that you've ever read? Best business book you've ever read? Anna?
Hands down, Good to Great. I have it on my shelf. In fact, I just listened to the audiobook for probably the second or third time. It's phenomenal. And I come back to it very frequently, and it always helps me get through any obstacle that I have in my business.
Love it. All right, Matt, what's your favorite business book?
I think it shifts with what's happening at the time. Yeah, I've read a lot of them, and they all provide a different level of insight over things. But I would say the one that most recently I think was the most apt was Essentialism, which is about sort of not doing things that aren't important.
Love it. Love it. Angela, what's your favorite business book?
Dr. Miles Monroe wrote a book on purpose and actually, I'm sorry, on vision. And it's one of my favorite because we cannot run and have successful organizations or even our lives without a vision. And so eyes that see are very, very rare. So we must have a vision.
Love it. Miles Monroe was a great, great man. And my favorite business book is actually 10X is Easier Than 2X by Dan Sullivan. I love this book, and it just blew my mind and changed my business. Thank you all so much for being on the Small Biz Chat podcast. Thank you to Dr. Angela Pipersburgh. You can reach her at kingdomchamberofcommerce.org. Matt Ryder, CEO of Sales Viper and the seventh group HQ. Also, don't forget to check out Anna Papalia's new book, Interviewology, The Science of Interviewing. Be sure to grab it anywhere books are sold. And thank you all for joining me for this episode of the Small Biz Chat podcast. If you're thinking about starting your dream business, be sure to check out my one-day virtual summit that we are having on January 16th. It's going to be everything you need to learn how to become your own boss. And for more details, head over to smallbizladyuniversity.com. And with that, I want to leave you with this. You never lose in business. Either you win or you learn. God bless everybody.